I'm going to answer the first question, which is as discussed in Alexandra de Linos Alonso's article, Mike Gonzalez from Heritage Foundation asserts that Mexicans' inability to assimilate is a threat to democracy and accountability. Which, in my opinion, I don't think Mexicans are a threat to democracy and, I mean, Mexicans' inability to assimilate, I don't think that's a threat. I think they've been having an inability to assimilate simply because the standard American or the mainstream American culture it's really like afraid of change. I think Mexicans right now have a very well since forever they've been having a very strong background, very strong cultural heritage, very like customs, traditions, food, everything. It's a very strong heritage which Mexicans are very proud of, and I don't think that the inability of assimilate to this mainstream American society has been a problem to democracy right now. I think that when we think about Mexican Americans, we think that they've been here from like a generation or two maybe, but no, Mexicans have been in America since hundreds of years ago. Like they're neighbors, they're neighbor countries. So immigration is inevitable. So for one circumstance or another, I mean, they've been immigrants in the United States, Mexican immigrants. So I think the right now with Trump's administration, I think Americans are very well, not everyone, but like really strong conservatives are very um, conservative in a way that they alienate the change and they alienate what they don't know. I mean, I'm not saying only Mexicans, but black people, Muslims, people from other countries. I mean, back then, Europeans, white people were the immigrants. So right now things are changing and new people are coming right now. I mean, soon enough, these minorities they will be the 50% of the population. They will not be a minority anymore. So I don't think Mexicans' inability to assimilate, I don't think that's a threat to democracy. I think the conservative way of seeing it and the trying to mold this already molded person, as I don't know how to say it, but like the Mexican has already all these traditions and heritage and all this way of living, and by someone trying to mold that, I don't think that's the way. I think that it's the real threat. I mean, trying to fit, it's like trying to fit someone in into something they don't fit in. So no, I don't think Mexicans' inability to assimilate it's a threat to democracy, and this is not an accurate statement nowadays. Esta es la pregunta dos. Fin. I think there are a lot of push and pull factors that push immigrants out of Mexico and pull them into the United States. That being I don't know, education, opportunity, jobs, crime. There's a lot of things that take into consideration when Mexicans want to immigrate into the US. But I think that um, these factors will still remain with the administration's orientation, which is this economic nationalism and populism, just that there will be no easy way. There has never been an easy way, but immigration will always be there. There will not be a time where Mexicans will stop going to the United States illegally. It will always happen. Why? Because it's a neighboring country, and when you have a third world country, aside from a first world country and an economic power that big, when you are living in such bad conditions like extreme poverty or in a town which is extremely dangerous or whatever, there will be always this idea of wanting to get out and to have a better life and the American dream and everything that's being said. And I think making it harder for Mexicans to pass. I mean, all that building the wall and building this strong border. I think that that is such a bad idea. I think that Mexicans, well, I don't think, I know that Mexicans will still cross. There will always be immigration, but even though instead of taking the easy way, which there is no actual easy way, but instead of taking like the normal way, they will take this like this other path, which is probably more dangerous, filled with crime. There's, I mean, immigration itself, it's dangerous. Living in Mexico, which is a country that has a lot of organized crime, there's a lot of risks, and criminals take advantage of that. So I think if you put them these locks, they will still go in, but in they will be going into these risks, and they will be into this danger which they probably wouldn't face if they will just go another way. I mean, I think there are a lot of ways to diminish uh, Mexicans immigrants, or to make it not an immigration crisis, or not to make it not, I mean, I think there are a lot of ways to solve this immigration problem between the US and Mexico, but I don't think this nationalist sentiment of just cutting themselves from Mexico and just like being nope. I don't think that's the way. That is actually the most dangerous way. And even in immigration, I mean, even economically, cutting ties with your neighbor country, that's not the way to do it. I mean, yes, they're extremely different, but they help each other. As well as there's a push factor, there's a pull factor, and I think they will always be there. But I think that um, it's not the way. I don't think this orientation that Trump's having with being very populist and very national and very America first and all that ideas, I don't think those ideas are the best ones right now for the conditions that both countries are having.
Question number 3 talks about the relationship of the terms of being an illegal immigrant and an undocumented worker. Not necessarily undocumented workers are illegal immigrants, because basically they could be people that are working with a salary that is not reported to the government, and therefore they don't pay taxes. So this is referring to being out of the system. Not necessarily undocumented workers have to be immigrants or illegal immigrants in this case. They can be United States citizens that are not registered in the system, and therefore they evade the paying of taxes. Also, back up! As I was saying, I believe that this actually contributes to the debate between these two terms, because categorizing an illegal immigrant with the word undocumented worker has nothing to do with the term, because an illegal immigrant is a person that enters the country without any papers or recognition to the state. But an undocumented worker not necessarily has to be an illegal immigrant. If we relate these terms and we put them together and we say that illegal immigrants are also undocumented workers, we are saying that undocumented immigrants, we are saying that people such as children, elderly, and the severely disabled are too undocumented workers, and they don't count. So this definitely has to do with the fact that there is a debate among these two terms.
In order to answer question number 4, where it establishes that Samuel Huntington claims in the article that certain key elements of the American culture have been under assault due to different factors such as policies on multiculturalism and diversity, as well as different stages of globalization. We can see different examples where this has been portrayed. For example, we cannot say that there have been these kinds of of not accepting different multiculturalism. It doesn't have to be in only in policies, in policy making, or coming from government. It can be pretty well seen in different cultural consequences that different well that in this case American society portrays. For example, we can easily see it in some of viral videos that have been rolling around in the past year, where certain ultra-nationalist Americans tend to be offended when any kind of person or immigrant talks in any different language that isn't English. And this portrays, or we can see in these kind of videos, the lack of acceptance or the lack of tolerance that have been increasing or has been rising in the past years. And we can confirm what the author said, that American identity and diversity being under attack. Another example of these consequences comes after this kind of denial or after these different social consequences that society makes, where making Americans this kind of actions makes different immigrants reject their own culture in order to pursue this long lost American dream. And this rejection of other cultures not only threatens the American identity, but it also threatens different cultures and identities that exist in this American society. And for example, what the author says that the one that's being most under attack is Mexican or any kind of Latin American culture, where they force these immigrants to simply get out of their culture, to get into this American culture and leave behind their Mexican or their Latin American culture in order to fit in and in order to reach this American dream.
Answering the question 5, although American culture is extremely diverse, there has been proof that a white nativist movement is possible. For example, the events occurred in Charlottesville, where a group of white nationalist supremacists marched in a torchlight progress, meant to evoke a similar march of Hitler, Youth, and other outright nationalist organizations of the past century, as it says in the Washington Post. Answering the question 6, we are not agree because the United States is characterized by its diversity, and we think that it's possible that the Spanish fit into both cultures and don't leave aside their Hispanic roots.